Guardian reported something yesterday that caught my eyes. Data governance is necessary, and the Caribbean and Global South need to pay attention to that. The fundamental idea is identifying vulnerability early so that support can be arranged for the child as early as possible. The danger is that early identification is a problem to me because it can easily lead to classification, particularly once AI is going to play a part in that. That is always my fear, how data is used, the potential, prediction and prevention in one main principle. And how are we going to approach that within a Caribbean context? Ministries and schools have information that is fragmented about attendance, literacy, examination performance, socioeconomic circumstances, school transfers, and other indicators. And if Jamaica is to follow this approach, there are implications. When used responsibly, AI can do tremendous work. For example, a system can detect where students are not attending schools, when they're getting into problems in the classroom, when they are repeating movements in the school. So I want to say that we can use data to establish patterns and know when students are not engaged. Instead of waiting when students reach high school, we can use data. And I'm a literacy person, so I believe in using data to support literacy and to support all aspects. And maybe counseling and ensuring family engagement is important. Data can be used that way. So I am not saying that it can't, but I think we have to have governance. But when we think about the limited resources that Jamaica has, Trinidad and Tobago has, Barbados, Guyana, and some of the Caribbean countries, we have to understand that there's a need to use what we have responsibly, because this could potentially identify schools and students that are not performing. And in many cases, many schools that are underperforming are sometimes punished. We know that, by not getting additional funding to improve. So I want to say that with proper governance, data could reveal problems with the program, patterns in behavior, children who are failing, but the system, yes, is already failing our students or children in many ways, particularly in the rural communities. If a particular rural community, socioeconomic groups or school consistently produce poor outcomes, AI could help policymakers identify systematic inequalities. I'm saying that it can help and create early intervention. So I want to make that clear. But we have to use data ethically. The most ethical use of predictive AI might not be predicting which child is failing, but predicting where the system is likely to fail the child. Move from the child to the system. But the risk of the Caribbean and Global South are substantial if we use this model. And I want to break that down because that's important. The first is algorithmic determinism. Imagine an 8-year-old boy assigned a 72% possibility of future unemployment. If the administrators are told the number that represents the risk, the destiny, and teachers and the institutions know this, how will they treat the child? Will they treat the child differently? Low expectations, self-fulfilling promises, or prophecy. Lower expectations can become self-fulfilling. Fewer advanced opportunities are offered to this child, and the student may be channeled toward a particular pathway. And I've seen that happen even before artificial intelligence. Prediction can therefore create outcomes that are not equal, that are not producing the best outcomes for the child. Now, historical bias. AI learns patterns from historical data, but Caribbean educational and economical history contains very in-depth connection to colonialism. Yes, unequal school resources, migration, and even access to technologies are part of that. An AI algorithm may discover that a particular child, postcode, or community demonstrates a lower level of employment over the years and might put that data in. Socially, however, that could create a problem in the evaluation of the child. It is risky. It is risky. So rather than saying we're assessing the child where the child is from birth to his primary school years, why not address the system that allows the child to feel at that point? That's another thought. So I want to say that when we use artificial intelligence and we're using all of this and we're considering using AI to help us, whose model are we using? Where's the AI sovereignty coming from? Are we pulling from data that is external to us, or do we have our own system? Imagine Caribbean schools purchasing an educational risk prediction platform developed by United States or England. Its model may have been trained on the assumption about British or American schooling, employment, family structures, and social economic indicators. These assumptions cannot simply be exported to Kingston, to Trinidad and Tobago, or to Montego Bay, Georgetown, and other places across the Caribbean. A child living with grandparents because parents have migrated overseas for work, for example, may look like he's at risk, although the model shows that that is the family structure of the Caribbean to some extent. An AI trained from somewhere else carries the assumption from somewhere else. For the Caribbean people and the global south, we would need to do our own. So when I look at England coming and starting to track and using data, the data is important. But we have to look at greater things, because we have to look at how schools are supported, how schools are funded. We have to look at the family structure. We have to look at all of these, and we have to see each child as an individual rather than collective patterns that we look at to evaluate. So predicting future employment requires combining increasingly sensitive information about academic records, attendance, family circumstances, socioeconomic status, health or disability information, behavioral record, and potential location or household data. So we have to ask ourselves, is it worth giving off all this information, and what happens to the child's data too? Who owns it? Who has access to it? And how long the prediction remains attached to the student? Is it for life? Now, let me tell you this. Investment in early childhood education always lags behind. And that is fundamental in everywhere. So if we start to invest early and watch students grow, it will be better rather than trying to have these systems sometimes. Are we producing if we go towards a model like this? How will we appoint a risk score to the child? And how would this look in the future? How will data be analyzed? That's important. How will we track? That's important. But the greater thing is understanding one thing. Rather than seeing the system as tracking each child and putting a score regarding employment, why not think about diverse learning pathways that will find the child's skill set, allow the child to grow and develop, and use that data to personalize a pathway that gives the child the utmost level of success to go in a particular direction in relation to being employed, rather than putting an employment score. That's all for now.